Hello and welcome to Tour Obscure, and today we are in Chesterfield. We've come back to where we started this channel. If you've seen the first video on the Crooked Spire, and that's got reference to today's video as well, because we're looking at the former home of the Spirites. To my left hand side is Saltergate, the former home of Chesterfield Football Club. It was built in 1871 and they left in 2010 to move to the B2 Net Stadium, as it was known then. But today this site looks very different, and there's very few reminders of a Football League ground once standing here. So join us for a walk around Saltergate to see what we can find. For 139 years, Chesterfield called Saltergate home. The stadium was about as old school as you could get, with a cop at one end of the ground where home fans would congregate every other week to cheer on their football club, and a main stand built by the famous football architect Archibald Leach in 1936. Although Saltergate was a historic stadium and had a special place in the heart of the fans, it simply did not meet the requirements of the club, both in terms of capacity and in terms of non-match day income. After many years of considering a stadium move, in 2010 that finally became reality, and 139 years of history at Saltergate come to an end. So we're just on Saltergate now, about to turn onto St Margaret's Drive, and it's one of them roads you don't really see coming. It just seems to pop out of nowhere, and it's just a quaint little street full of residential houses, and you would have no idea, but there was a Football League ground on here if you were to walk up here today. So this is St Margaret's Drive, and you'll be able to see just behind me there's two rather new houses sandwiched in between two older properties, and that was the main entrance to the main stand. So this is where all the club officials would enter, but that's obviously been replaced by houses now. That little car park over there, and just in that little section what we've just been looking at, where them two new houses are built, that was actually a film set at one point. When The Damned United was being filmed, it was based around Derby County and Brian Clough's reign there, and part of it anyway. And they needed a football ground, what they could get to look like the original baseball ground, the old home of Derby County. Now, there weren't many grounds what had not changed much since the 1970s, but Saltergate remained relatively unchanged since the 1970s. So the film crew was actually rented part of the stadium for a sum of £50,000, and they used that little area, and they took down the Chesterfield logos and all the signage, and did a bit of painting as well. And as you can see in these photos, it's just quite a convincing job of looking like Derby County's former home. But that's quite an unusual fact, because I'm sure many Chesterfield fans weren't that happy about their stadium getting turned into what was the home of a close rival. There's not many fans that would be happy with that, but that is what happened, and I'm sure the £50,000 did help the club to some extent. So now this is Cross Street, and where the new houses are there is where the away end, the Cross Street terrace, was situated. And this is where the oldest part of the ground was actually. So when the ground was first built, this road wasn't actually here. It was built by the council, and in return for some land, the club got the back end of the away end built up to provide a bit more enclosure. And that big concrete wall you can see in this photo, that was built in 1921 by the council, and that remained all the way up to the final days of the stadium. And you might just be able to see, just in between the houses there, you can just see the top of the crooked spire, and that's where this football club got its nickname from. And then just there is the road name of one of the main roads what lead through this site now. And you will notice that it's a little play on the nickname of the football club, which is the Spirites. So we're walking through now what would have been the away end, and probably looking around the penalty box area. And although football has not been played on this site for 14 years now, just I've been walking down the road as a young boy playing football, just kicking it against a wall. And yeah, it shows you that football on this site isn't dead after all. But just here we've got like a little green space. I'm not sure of the relevance of this. It could be roughly where the centre spot was, so this might be something to do with that as a little reminder. But there's no markers or little statues like you sometimes see at these sites. It's just a little green space in the middle of the housing estate. So where we are just now, we'd be looking over to the Compton Street stand, and then just behind us there would have been the Cop stand. And then looking towards the away terrace that way. And then to our right would have been the main stand. And probably the only sign, but this used to be a historic football ground. We've got a little memorial here. I don't know if you can make that out. It says Saltergate 1871 to 2010. And this little fence is meant to depict, I'd imagine, the fans. And as you look closely to it, even as you continue to look at it, more things become apparent. That's obviously the main stand just there. And I've just spotted this one as well. And it seems to depict a fan in a wheelchair. And I do believe the relevance of that fan in the wheelchair is possibly connected to the final ever game what was played here at Saltergate. So many football fans will remember that the final game was very eventful. It was against Bournemouth. It was a 2-1 win for Chesterfield. An injury time winner from the club's longest serving player at the time, Derek Niven. Obviously sparked scenes all over the ground, and the fans invaded the pitch, including a fan in a wheelchair. And this clip went viral on YouTube. I think it's got over 100,000 views on many platforms. It went absolutely viral. So I do believe that is what it's referencing to. Do I think it was a bad move? Yes and no. You've got to look at the financial gain for football clubs such as Chesterfield. Obviously, Saltergate never had any of the corporate hospitality what the new stadium does. But the traditional football fan will tell you that the new stadium just doesn't offer that same traditional feeling. It seems very soulless. It looks very alike to many other stadiums around the country. So it hasn't got that character, that uniqueness to it. But ultimately, financially for the club, I know they've had a period of bad luck getting relegated to the Conference, or National League as it's called now. I'm old school. But they have just bounced back, so hopefully Chesterfield can push on and get back to the level where they belong. Now it's interesting for me to come back here actually, because time for a little story. So 12 years ago, I come down here to watch the ground get demolished, and there was very little information on social media as to when it was going to start, so I'd pay a couple of trips down here a week just to see the progress and if anything had started. And on that first trip down, I come down to the stadium, I walked up this road, St Margaret's Drive. I was very young at the time, probably 16, 17, around that. And I'm walking up, the ground had been laid derelict for 2 years at this point. So I walked up, everything was fenced off, very secure. And as I walked up to the corner of the main stand and Compton Street, I noticed there was a little gap in the fence, very, very tiny. And it was one of them moments I just thought, I've got to take this opportunity. So I crawled through this tiny little hole and it left scratch marks all the way down my side. I just wanted that one photo. So I got in, and as I entered the stadium, it was one of them moments you always remember. I was on the floor after I'd crawled through the fence, and I stood up, dusted myself down, and I looked up, and it was just me and this empty historic football ground. Absolutely incredible. And I just stood for 10, 15, 20 seconds just taking it all in. It were a very surreal experience. And I picked my phone up and I took this photo, and it's still one of my all-time favourite photos. It was took on an iPhone 3, one of the original iPhones, so it's not that good quality, but it's still one of my favourite photos. And after I took this photo, I obviously thought I'd won the lottery or something. I were absolutely beaming. I took a couple of steps forward and I heard this click, and obviously the security systems had triggered. And the next minute this massive siren went off, and obviously being 16 years old, I absolutely cacked myself. And put it this way, I crawled through that hole a lot faster than when I entered. And being panicked, I run all the way down back into Chesterfield town centre where my granddad was. I don't think he knew what I was doing, to be fair. And as I were running back into the town centre past, I believe it's the town hall, the big grand building, I could still hear the sirens. And everything was going through my head, you know, police are going to be coming after me thinking I've been trying to steal scrap metal or whatever. But yeah, silly young decisions, eh? But I did get that photo, and it's one of the best photos I ever got. Obviously capacity was another issue for Chesterfield with regards to moving stadiums. But believe it or not, this place once had over 30,000 people in it for an FA Cup round 5 tie against Tottenham Hotspur. It's hard to believe, but 30,000 people were once cheering on Chesterfield on this site, which is now somebody's living room, somebody's bedroom, somebody's garden, conservatory. So this is still Cross Street, just approaching the junction with Compton Street, and this would still have been the away terrace, the Cross Street terrace. And we would have been looking at just a concrete wall at this point, and it would have reached probably to around the guttering area of that house there, and then looking down towards the Cop. So this is the junction of Cross Street and Compton Street now, and you will see now just how hemmed in this street was to the football ground. As I said, I remember walking down here all those years ago, and you couldn't really tell, but there were a football ground behind the houses, even if you looked down the side of the houses. You think about football grounds like Main Road, you know, you could walk down a street like this and you'd look behind the house and you'd see just a towering structure, but there was nothing as such here to reference a football ground sitting more or less in somebody's back garden. You could see just a little roof, and for all you know, it could have been a garden shed. And just while we're here on Compton Street, I do believe there's another photo I took on that day when I come down in 2012, and it shows you a floodlight in between the houses. Now this photo won't be very clear. I'll have probably edited it a bit too heavily, but it just shows you what it looked like. And just while we have a walk around here, just a personal thank you to everybody what does watch. It's appreciated. If you do want to help out, any share is massively appreciated. It's all about getting it out there. And then obviously any comments, likes, all that kind of stuff. It all helps with this algorithm stuff, which I don't fully understand, but it exists, so we have to play by them rules. So any of that is appreciated. There is a thanks button as well if you want to take it a step further. Anything what is raised on there goes back into the channel, back into travel funds. There's loads of stuff I want to do, but unfortunately with how much rail travel is and stuff like that, it's just not possible for me at the moment. So just this spot here, we would have been looking at the rear of the Cop, and the side, the Compton Street stand would have just been up there, and then just to the right here we would have had a social club. You might be able to see just behind me, just a little family walking across there. They've just stopped and had a nice chat with me. One of them bizarre moments where you get stopped and you start chatting. They're actually from Somerset and they just come to Chesterfield for the day. So I'm not 100% sure about this, but this is still part of the site, and this building here is now the Samaritans, but it's obviously an older building than the rest of the new builds, as you can see behind. I'm just wondering if that was part of the social club. Chesterfield fans, please let me know. I do seem to recognise this building from when I was here, so that was probably it, the social club. Again, if I'm wrong, Chesterfield fans, let me know and heavily criticise me in the comments below. So that is it from Chesterfield. We've had a good look round the former home of Chesterfield FC. The only really real reminder is the little memorial what we saw with the little fence and the inscription on it, Saltergate 1871 to 2010. So there's not that much to see, but yeah, this place was once a football league ground, not but you'd know it today. So thanks for joining us, and until next time, I'll see you later.